Hey, welcome back to the Drum Rundown. We're here at County Q in Nashville, Tennessee with one of my favorite drummers and an old-time friend, Andy Herrin of the band Cavo. How's it going, man?
It's going good, man. Thanks for having me.
Cool. A little bit of a role reversal here because you're usually interviewing me when you're at 102.9 The Buzz here in Nashville.
It's like Bizarro World. I like
it. It's awesome. I like to switch it up.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time about this awesome kit because I know it has a really interesting story about how you tracked it down and how you found it. Why don't you give us the inside?
Dude, that's the #1 question I always get asked when I bring this thing out in Nashville, mainly because the kit is an Ayotte Kit, which is Canadian. And I grew up watching Much Music. My dad had this magic card in our on our satellite dish, and it would give us Much Music, which was the Canadian version of MTV. And every single drummer played Ayotte. Some guys in the States did too, like Matt from Soundgarden and a few, but it was all Canadian drummers played Ayotte. And I never knew what they were, how to find one. And I was actually a big fan of Pete Yorn, if you're familiar with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw him on the Music for the Morning After tour, and he had this kit, and his drummer, Luke Adams, was up there just throwing down. I loved the big tom sound, and we became friends. I want to say it was on MySpace. It's been that long. And he posted he was selling it. And so I messaged him. I think I was 19 or 20. And I was like, hey, man, is that the kit that you had on the Music for the Morning After tour? And he was like, yeah, it is. And so I bought it off of him. My dad helped me get it, and I worked at his construction site to pay it off after that. Totally worth it. And I've had it ever since. It's going on. I believe I've had this kit exactly 20 years this year.
That's awesome. It's got a lot of miles on it. I'm sure it's seen some crazy out there on the road.
Dude.
What's the craziest thing you think you've seen out there on the road?
You know, two stories come to mind when I think about like drum things with this kit. One thing, I was in a band for a long time, and we did a lot of cymbal grabs. So you'd be like playing, and everything would get quiet, and so you would like get quiet. And for some reason, we're playing it for the first song, 45-minute set, opening in this big theater show, and I'm playing, and I do the grab, and when I do, for some reason, my thumb gets caught, and blood goes all over the ride. I played through the whole show, but by the time we were done, the kit was just covered in blood.
Yeah.
And it was a mess. But that was probably more of a gory story. But there was one time I was actually playing here in town at the Mercy Lounge, rest in peace. And I had my kit not cased up yet, but stacked. Because in those days, you drive your car up and you get out. I didn't have room for the cases. And so I had the tom, the kick, and the ride, and the tom all stacked at the very top of the Mercy Lounge steps. And I was waiting for my friend to pull his car around, and some drunk guy comes out. He's like, dude, killer show. Let me help you. And I was like, I'm fine. Man. And then he tripped, fell through the kit, and I watched this drum kit bounce down the steps and go into the parking lot. I wanted to kill him.
Those are nobody even knows. Those are the longest steps. It's a very, very long staircase.
Like 12 or 13 steps, every one of them. And then it's going out, and cars are swerving, and he's trying to help me. Luckily, nothing was cracked. It's a miracle nothing was cracked or warped. But it was definitely watching them fall in slow motion was the closest thing I can imagine to watching something happen to your child, because I don't have any kids. But it was wild, man. So
that just speaks to the ruggedness of these awesome drums.
Yeah, they are road dogs, man.
Why don't we talk about the shell construction that can withstand a 13-step fall?
They're made of pure stone.
Yeah.
It's a maple kit. And it's everything is wood hoops, and it's actually not, or everything on the kick is wood hoops, and it's not a wrap. It's actually painted.
Okay.
But it's not. But it doesn't look like it's painted. It has like a glossy finish. So
I just assumed that was a wrap, because that is a beautiful. I'm assuming it's a champagne.
Yeah, champagne sparkle.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And it looks like a wrap, which I love that about it, because sometimes painted kits look a little hokey, but the lacquer on the outside looks like a wrap, which I love. And then I have the two, obviously the rack, which is 13 inches, and the 16-inch. Floor tom. Ayotte's usually have wood hoops on everything, but I just am more of a fan of the metal, and so was Luke Adams, who I bought it off of, thankfully. So we have the custom metal hoops on instead. And then I had this custom built back in 2017 when I finally became an Ayotte endorsed artist, which took me forever to get to do that. I actually left D-Drum to go join them, and they basically built me this snare drum, and I wanted the blue to match my childhood Apollo kit that I had. So I sent them a picture of it. And sure enough, they nailed it, the sparkle and everything.
Yeah, it's perfect.
But I wanted the wood hoops. I've always liked wood hoop snare. It's just a much bigger crack. It does save on your hand. A lot of older drummers tell me that, like it saves your wrist. But as far as like just the sound of a big booming snare drum, I love the wood hoops. But the problem is you have to have a custom built snare drum for it, or a snare stand.
Of course.
So a lot of fly dates you show up and your snare doesn't fit. But other than that, that's the only thing about this kit that was custom by me. Everything else has kind of stayed the same. I love a very minimal kit. Obviously, I don't have a lot. Cavo, a lot of the bigger tours we've done have been with really like metal, not metal, but heavier bands. So it'd be like Will Hunt from Evanescence, RJ Hale from Hailstorm, and then me, and I have like this.
Yeah.
I've always just loved minimal, making drum sound as big as you can with as little as you can, I guess. So I always keep it really minimal. I might add another crash sometimes, but usually it's just very minimal like this.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why I like gravitate towards you as a drummer being one of my favorites, because I also play a 1 up, 1 down, just like the Groover. It's like less is more.
Yeah.
And you know, it's so many people just have like 17 piece this or like 8 cymbals and stuff,
Like a
and it's like
rack and everything.
it's just like you can get it done with just this color palette, and I think you're pulling it off very well.
Thanks, man.
What are the tom sizes?
Tom sizes are 13 and then a 16.
Okay.
And I if I could change anything, I might do a 14 just because I just love big toms. But I've had this one tuned to where it sounds a lot bigger, I think, to me. But yeah, 13, 16, and then a 14-inch snare drum, and then 22. The kick is rather long. It's actually a 22 by 18.
Yeah, it's super long.
So it's more of a cannon, which I love that, the real big impact you get from that if you really down tune that front head.
Yeah, and you're moving a lot of air with it.
Yeah.
What is the head on there?
That's actually an Evans GMAD. It's the only Evans one I use. Everything else is Remo, but I just love the GMAD on the Evans. It has that certain punch.
GMADs are really cool on bass drums. Do you play it with the foam in the ring
The
or
smaller,
not?
the smaller ring.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't do the big one. It's always been the smaller. I think it's more of an OCD thing at this point. Like I just always like the smaller one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just love Evans, and then I do the black dots on the Remo, kind of like a nod to the 70s, like Don Henley would do. I just kind of love that vintage look.
Was it more for the look, or were you trying to get the controlled sound with the dot?
It was for the look originally, and then I love the sound. Originally, I was like, I want to be Don Henley in 1975, and then now it's like, oh, I like the sound.
Yeah.
So.
Because I see that you're running a little bit of moon gel just there on that to get a little bit of the overtones in, but you're not running any moon gel or any sort of dampening on the toms.
No, nothing on the toms. The snare, I definitely do a little bit. Usually live, they fly off and you go without. But and I do have a big fat snare drum that I put on here. I love that company, but I feel like that's just too much muffling for me. I like to have big, open, loud drums, and if you have a tight sounding snare drum, it doesn't really transcend well live.
Yeah.
Studio maybe, but yeah, usually it's just everything raw, maybe one moon gel, kind of weirdly placed on the snare.
Cool. And resonant heads?
Oh yeah. Yeah, on the bottom, I've got ambassadors down there.
Okay.
I love having that. I actually, a friend of mine recently informed me you're supposed to change those. I had no idea.
Yeah, you can't just leave them on forever, man.
I had the same ones on for like 15 years. And he was like, you should probably change those. And so we changed the bottom of the heads, and it opened up a whole new world.
Obvious thing that's sticking out is the wood hoops on this snare drum. Why don't you talk to me a little bit about how you got to the wood hoop here?
You know, they usually do wood hoops on the toms with Ayotte, but they're super like tall, so you kind of have to tilt your toms, and I hate tilting toms. So I don't like to play wood hoops on actual toms and stuff like that with Ayotte. And they do make Ayotte snare drums that have that real thin, it's a real tall, so you just find it just kind of, it's awkward and it chips up. And so there was a band from St. Louis called Toby Kai and the Strays, and they were a lot older than me. I was probably like 19. And they their drummer was playing the show, and he had a lot of crack, and I happened to notice back there the crack of that snare, and it was like a flat wood hooped. And so when I got the deal with Ayotte and they wanted to build me a snare, that was my first thing, was like, can I get like a flatter, wider wood hoop for a bigger sound, and just kind of not like the awkward, because I don't want to tilt. I'm not a big tilting drum guy, maybe a little bit, but not anything crazy.
Yeah.
And so they sent me these, and you can buy these, you can order them, like Gibraltar makes a certain pair. There's different companies that do make them. They're just hard to find. But I feel like with me, once you go wood, it's hard to go back. I do metal snares sometimes, a lot of times in the studio. But yeah, once you go wood, it just, for some reason, it cracks really well. And it just really, older drummers have always told me it saves your wrist. So maybe someday, whenever I get there, maybe I'll know. But I just feel like it's one of those things that just once you do it, you just feel like it just makes it feel bigger and just louder. And they did as far as like with the lugs here. Ayotte's have the lugs where you can actually, I'm not sure if you're familiar with these, but they have the really quick lugs. So you basically just loosen them up and they pop out, and you just can change the head really quick.
Yeah.
So actually for drum techs, it's kind of like the dream snare drum, because you don't have to take everything off. You just loosen it, pop out, lift off, and it's kind of meant that way. So I really wanted to make sure they stuck true to that, to where I could still have the quick release.
Because that is so cool, and getting a head on and off quickly, without having to take everything off, because nothing's more annoying than having to bring a drill and kind of or get tuned up for using a drill, because you just get yelled at if you do that.
And they stay in tune better, I think, because of that, because there's kind of like a whole release mechanism that holds them in tune. I've always seen people talking about Ayotte online. They talk about how they're just kind of like known for being in tune for long periods of time, and drummers don't really have to mess with them too much. So I do love that aspect too, especially if you're out touring and every day you're playing. It's nice not to mess with it too much.
So you're not having like any of the tuning pins like back out and getting loose when you're playing
No,
live?
not really. That's one thing I've been really fortunate with this kit. I don't really have that. Snares, that's always a nightmare for me. I'm sure is it for you too.
For sure.
And this snare hasn't really given me that problem. Maybe it's the hoops here, I don't know, but it has not had any issues like that, which is great.
That's great. It's beautiful and it sounds good too.
Thanks, man.
Let's talk about cymbals. What do we got? We got Sabians up.
You know, I've always been a Sabian guy, man. I did Zildjian when I was a kid, and then around the time I turned like 19, somebody gave me a Sabian AAX, which is what I use here. I love the darker series they do, so all my stuff has always got to be like the Dark Crash, which is 18. And then I love these bash rides. It's a 21-inch. I love doing the odd number for that for some reason. But it's a bash ride because in a lot of my bands, I don't do a lot of ping. I just don't. And so I've always liked the fact that it's really kind of washy. There's not a lot of ping to it, and so it's always been the thing where like a lot of the studios I record in, they don't want to use it because it's too washy. But live, because I only have the two cymbals, you kind of ride on it, and then you can kind of open up to where you're doing like if you're doing like a part where you want to pretend it's a cymbal, and then you kind of and it kind of plays both.
Yeah.
But yeah, bash rides, man. I have the AAX bash ride, and then the AAX Dark Crash, and then the hi hats are 14-inch AAX Dark as well. Cool. I just don't like bright cymbals. I've always liked. I think I tweeted one time, I just like really big drums. I'm just like a big kid. Just big drums that are loud.
Yeah, you know? Big drums that are loud. But you are getting a little bit of articulation and ping out of the bell when you need it. So that's
but it's very controlled.
Yeah.
And I play with the stick backwards. I've always played with it backwards too, so I get a lot more with that. This stick has always been backwards my entire life. I'm not sure why. I try not to do it as much anymore, but live it's always backwards.
Okay.
So it washes it out quite a bit.
And what stick sizes are you using?
I'm using a Vater 5B wood tips. I used
tree trunks.
Oh yeah. I've always used ProMark for years, and then around like 2012, somebody gave me a pair of Vaters, and they don't bust your hands up at all. At least not mine, and they hold up better. And I love them. Vater all the way. Cool. You know.
Awesome. Shout out to Vater.
Yeah.
What do you got as your kick pedal down there?
The DW3000. I've had the better ones. Like I've had like the 9 and the 5. And for some reason, the 3000 always just holds up. I love the DW3000. It's just very quick. As quick as I want to be, because I don't do double kick stuff or anything. But yeah, I mean, I've always had issues with the nicer ones, and this is like the cheaper one that they'll always send me, and I just love that it's like holds up really well. I mean, I've thrown it all over the place and it just lasts for a while. But the quickness, because kick drums sometimes when it comes to the pedal, it can be too quick or too slow, and I don't do a lot of the type of stuff like that, and so it's the perfect for me where you kind of lay into it and you don't have to worry about it going too fast.
And I know you have new music coming out with Cavo. You want to give us some inside scoop?
You know, man, it's been a long time. We finally started. We had like 1,000 demos that we did for 2 different labels. Some songs that we fought to put on our records and then that didn't make it, and we've been putting them out. And we finally started recording some new stuff. And so we've had all these singles coming out. Some of them are older songs, and then some of them are newer. But we have a song that just dropped a couple weeks ago called Dizzy, and then we have another single coming out February 17th. It's a cover of The Cars Drive that we did, a weird version of that song. And we shot a really cool video for it. And I've been in that band now for well over 10 years. And it's just been fun playing with the guys again, getting the stuff out, and hopefully doing some shows. And it feels like 2012 all over again. It's pretty rad.
Awesome. I mean, anytime we can like rewind the last couple years and pretend that they didn't exist, I'm here for it.
Exactly.
But I know you guys have a great fan base and been excited to have new music out, including myself. So
thanks, man.
Yeah, man, congratulations and thanks for having us.
Dude, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Giving us this tour of this awesome kit.
Dude, well, thank you for showcasing it. I appreciate it very much.
Of course. This has been the Drum Rundown. We're here with Andy Herrin of Cavo. We'll see you on the next one.